Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I've been meaning to film this video for a while and I had some orders to do some pins, so I thought what best time to film it. Today I'm going to show you how I do my pins with shrink plastic. I've been doing them for a few months. I tested out a little bit of materials and techniques. I thought I could share with you what I've learned so far. Materials that I use, it's basically shrink plastic, scissors, an oven, and if you want to make them all shiny and bright, you can use UV resin. For shrink plastic, I use this brand over here. It's from Vasen Creative. I already tried two brands. This is the second brand that I tried. I feel like the shrink plastic has a lot more quality, and when you put them in the oven, this one shrinks perfectly. With this one, I feel like the shrink plastic doesn't have any distortion, so I really like this brand. If you want to check it out, I bought it on Amazon and I'll leave the link in the description, as well as the UV resin that I use and all the materials. And for shrink plastic, you have to be careful because it has to say you can print it on inkjet, otherwise it won't be possible for you to print. You can just color it with like pencils and stuff like that. So if you want a shrink plastic that you can print your designs on, you have to be careful and buy one that lets you do that, basically. So yeah, let's get started.
Okay, so the first thing, it's basically print on the shrink plastic. When you go to the oven, the colors will be a lot darker than when it appears on the print. So what you're going to do is you have to increase the brightness, or you can add a white rectangle like I have here, and I basically put it in around 30% opacity so that the colors will look a lot lighter, and when you print you get the real colors that you wish and not a way darker ones. Then we need to cut the pieces. This for me, it's the most important part of the process. The shrink plastic, it's a very thick material, even when before going to the oven. So you need to be very careful not to rip it apart. When you have an image with a lot of details, you'll have to cut it like in a cross and not with the scissors going around, so that the plastic won't fall apart, because even if it's just 2 millimeters, that will be noticeable after the baking. So this part, it's very important for a nice piece and a perfect piece after baking, basically. As you can see, I'm very carefully cutting and going around the edges. When it's like a more angular cut, I always do two cuts, one from the right and one from the left, so that doesn't happen. And now it's time to get them in the oven. And this is the fun part because you get to see them shrink, and it's very funny because they seem to get very distorted, but they won't, don't worry. In the middle of the baking, when they start to stop shrinking, I go and I pat them so that they get nice and straight. Then I close the oven again, and when I see that they stop shrinking, I go again and I do the same thing. Right before taking out of the oven, I tap them again, and then when you get them out of the oven, they will be soft for around 5 seconds, so that's the time you have to tap them again until they get cold, basically, and then we repeat the process all over again. Just don't forget to tap them when they get out of the oven. It's very important because that's the time they can curl up. It's very important to tap them in the middle and in the end of the process so that doesn't happen, but be careful not to tap them too early when they are curling in the oven, otherwise they will get a lot of flaws and get distorted. And this is the final result after they came out of the oven. Look how cute they look. Now we have to glue the backs. Before gluing, I always like to scratch the bag where I'm going to glue the backing, just so they can glue a lot much easier because they have more texture to glue to. I use super glue to glue the backing of the pins. Be very careful using super glue because you'll get glued very easily. After putting in the back, I always apply a little bit of pressure just to make sure they're nice and steady. Then it's time for varnishing. I use a watercolor matte varnish. If you want, you don't have to use a varnish, I just use it for extra protection. Use this kind of materials always in a well-ventilated area because they are normally toxic, so you need to be careful with your lungs. This is also a needed process to apply the UV resin because the UV resin won't apply in plastic. You'll need to apply a material before the UV resin. I'll leave the materials that I use for the UV resin in the details. I use a small UV lamp and a resin from Amazon, and instead of a brush I use like a spatula because I feel like it doesn't create as much bubbles as a brush. And I use rubbing alcohol to get rid of the resin between pieces. And here they are curing in the UV resin so that the UV resin gets thicker. And then I'll just put them in the backing cards and they are ready. Here are the pins without the UV resin, only with the matte finish. And this is the final result with the UV resin, all shiny and bright. And here's the final result for all the pins and how I make my pins.
And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned a lot and that you come off of this video ready to make your own pins and ready to experiment with shrink plastic. I think that's an amazing material and you can do so much with it, and it's so fun to watch it shrink in the oven. If you enjoy this kind of videos, please subscribe. I upload 1 or 2 videos every week on my channel, and it's really important for me if you subscribe and support me over here on YouTube. It really means a lot. So click the bell button if you want to receive notifications for every video that I post, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye! Bye!